And welcome to Flightdeck Live. I am Tim Capper along with Cliffy D. Pinez. We are here at TD Place Stadium in Ottawa, Ontario, as the Alouettes beat the Ottawa RedBlacks by the score of 24-12. With that win, there were a few things that the Alouettes were able to clinch and to continue, weren't they, Cliff?
Absolutely. Once again, the Montreal Alouettes remain unbeaten on the road. Sorry, we really do have to make it clear. Unbeaten on the road, handing the Ottawa RedBlacks their first home loss here at TD Place in 2024.
Yep.
Also, clinching a home playoff game. So yes, come November, we still don't know exactly when yet, but come November, there will be a playoff game at Percival Molson Stadium. Hoping for the Eastern Final. Maybe it's the Eastern semifinal again, but guaranteed Montreal, you will get a playoff game in November.
That's right. And also with the win, the Alouettes have now won 10 consecutive games in Ottawa. We were joking before. Whose house is this?
Our house.
Our house. At least for the last 10 games, it's been ours. The score really isn't indicative of the game itself, Cliff, because I will admit, even though the Owls did win by 12, seeing what's happened over the last two games, specifically with the Alouettes and how anemic that the offense have been, I'm still very concerned, especially, with what happened today, because there are a few quarters there where it's just like back to the basics all over again.
Yeah, there was a lot of coasting that went on. Let's not forget, Montreal started off hot. I mean, Deontay Ruffin with the pick six to set the tone right away, which is exactly what I said Montreal had to do. They had to set the tone right away, get in Drew Brown's kitchen, and look what happened. Not only that, the next series after that, Jeffrey Conte-Arcu, who's been an absolutely outstanding rookie candidate for most outstanding rookie for the Montreal Alouettes, did it again. In his first interception in the Canadian Football League. Absolutely outstanding. So again, this defense, right off the hop, they came to play.
Yeah.
They came to play. They set the tone early. Problem is, though, in the second half, it almost felt like they just started to take the foot off the gas just a little bit. It
did seem that way, and luckily, with that pick six, we didn't get any point. I didn't get any points. I don't think on the second interception itself. But still, the Alouettes were 1 for 2 when it came to getting points off of turnovers. But again, Cliff, one of the things that we talked about, the slow starts that these Alouettes have, and are they able to get a win considering they have a slow start? This first quarter today was a slow start in itself. They only had their first down with less than a minute left in the first quarter, and they had 20 total yards in that first quarter alone.
Yeah, I mean, this offense, by and large, we know how good they can be, and give Cody Fajardo credit. I mean, he was able to retain his title of consistently consistent, but at times it just felt like this offense just wasn't clicking. Like they're doing just enough to not lose, which is definitely not how you want to play. That's exactly how they played the overtime game in Calgary. They were doing just enough not to lose. And you're not going to win games doing that. Mind you, they won today, but it's not a recipe for success. It's not one that should be replicated over and over again.
It also makes you wonder, if Drew Brown had not gone out with an injury, and when Jeremiah Mazzoli coming in, what this game could have been, on the scoreboard wise, because at that time, Drew Brown just looked absolutely horrible. I mean, all the way through 2 picks in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was not happening for him. I think the ankle injury was probably the best thing that could have happened to the Ottawa RedBlacks, because it gave them an opportunity to put Jeremiah Mazzoli in. And while he wasn't perfect, I mean, he definitely he did just enough to keep the Ottawa RedBlacks in this game. But by and large, this RedBlacks team, they didn't look prepared. It was almost like they didn't know what to expect out of Montreal. And sure enough, Montreal, for the most part, was able to capitalize on that.
Yep, exactly. Let's go over some of these stats here, and we'll talk about this game a little bit more. And obviously, we'll go into this more in detail on the podcast on Wednesday. Cody Fajardo was 16-27 for 226 yards, no picks, no interceptions. Okay, that has been consistent Cody. Again, issues I find with the running game. There's not using it enough. Walter Fletcher did lead the team with 36 yards on 8 attempts. The one touchdown went to Cody Fajardo. Leading receiver for the Alouettes this game was Charleston Rambo, 4 catches for 77 yards. So I feel like I'm backing up here.
Yeah.
So
in a lot of ways, the Alouettes maybe should be backing up before they get too ahead of themselves with this kind of win. I mean, let's not forget, next week they're going to be going to BMO Field and taking on the Toronto Argonauts, who did not look great, but they still came very close to winning last night against the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
I'm just worried about if anybody saw the game last night. I still have to comment on it. That field looked absolutely atrocious at BMO. Let's just hope something is done because I don't want any of these players getting hurt next week.
Yeah, to be fair, there was a Toronto FC played a game, I think it was 2 or 3 days beforehand, so that's the reason why it got chewed up. So I'm hoping and praying that Toronto FC is not going to be playing any games next week at BMO Field and giving Montreal and Toronto a proper field to play on.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. The defense itself, the defense really did well tonight. I mean, as I said, the only problem is that within that first and midway through the second quarter until the Alouettes started to get going, because the second quarter was completely opposite for the Owls offense versus the first. I was just afraid that this defense was going to get gassed, considering how much they were out on the field in the first half.
I mean, they did a much better job of getting off the field this time around than they did, for say, example, versus Calgary. But a lot of times, too, it really just came down to the ineptitude of Ottawa more than anything else. I mean, they weren't able to capitalize on too many mistakes, but at the same time, Ottawa did just enough not to completely throw the game away. It really was pedantic football, like just very mediocre, to tell you the truth, from both teams. I mean, yes, Montreal got the win, and that's what counts. But at the same time, I mean, this wasn't pretty to watch. I mean, if you made the effort to come out and watch this game as an Alouettes fan, as happy as you are to get the win, there's a little part of you that has to be saying, "That's it. I got out of bed for this. I drove all the way to Ottawa for this." I mean, you got to be better than that. If fans are going to make the effort, and shout out, by the way, to the 5 buses of Alouettes Nation that came for this game. You heard them. You heard them on TV. I'm sure you heard them on TV. We heard them in the stands. They were loud. They were boisterous. They were causing all kinds of havoc. It felt like a home game in a lot of ways here.
Yeah. And one of the funny things, and I guess I'm probably going to still use it on the pod on Wednesday, is it's Cole Speaker. Cole Speaker.
Not Spiker.
No, not Spiker. Also, props to Jose Maltos. If you didn't see the stats this week that came out from the CFL, the game notes, his streak is now of consecutive field goals is now over 20, and he is just shy of the Montreal Alouettes record for most consecutive field goals in a row, and that is by a guy who we saw a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely. Shaun White, who, oh, by the way, just became a father today. So shout out to Shawnee for joining the dadhood. I mean, good for him. But yes, Jose Maltos coming very close to, he's still got a couple games to go, but could be joining Shaun White or even surpassing him as far as consecutive field goals made. So, I mean, that's absolutely outstanding. Speaks to the work that he's put in relief of David Cote. Jose Maltos, es bueno.
Yeah. One thing I'm going to comment on here, and I wanted your opinion on this, and then maybe we can finish up the live for this week, is the particular play that Ottawa did. Obviously, how well the defense was doing for the Alouettes tonight. Ottawa going for a 3rd and 5 with 7.5 minutes left, when a field goal could have made a huge difference in this game, could easily have gotten the RedBlacks a lot closer. But that just wasn't the case. They go for it on 3rd and 5. Alouettes take over. Alouettes really didn't get any points out of it. I know we did get 3 points later on in the quarter, but I just don't understand. I mean, to me, I don't know if necessarily that was a turning point considering how this game went, but it was very close to being one.
Not to mention the fact, too, that this was like with 9 minutes and 15 seconds, if I'm not mistaken, in the fourth quarter. I mean, still a lot of time. I mean, yes, when you're down by 2 scores, essentially, you're going to try to do what you can. And field goals, as we've talked about numerous times, kicking field goals isn't going to be enough to win against a team like Montreal. But, I mean, you had to come away with some points in that instance. I mean, going for it on 3rd and 5 with lots of time left to go. I mean, it was a bold choice, and sometimes fortune favors the bold, but not in this case.
No. One last thing, too, is that the Alouettes improved drastically on time of possession this week, Cliff. Just over 30 minutes. So can't complain. Again, there are things to work on. And obviously, as the week goes on, we'll be talking about more of that stuff on the podcast. So if you haven't missed this past week's show, make sure you head over to all of our socials. You can head over to alouettesflightdeck.ca, head over to Facebook, head over to Instagram, head over to everywhere that we have the podcast, and make sure you do listen into the show or catch some of the other ones that you may have missed on. And obviously heading over to YouTube for whether it be Flightdeck Live, the show, or any of the audio or video versions.
Absolutely. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, make sure you ring that notification bell, make sure that you know that when we go live or when we upload the latest episode of the podcast, that you are aware of it. And definitely, if you haven't had a chance to, do that now. Or make sure, however it is that you're consuming the podcast, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following us. We keep saying it week after week, but we want you to be part of the flight crew. So by all means, join us on this ride, because I don't want to get too excited right now because, I mean, yes, the Alouettes kind of got off their mini schneid, if you will.
Yeah.
Is this a turning point for the season for the Alouettes? Do you think they finally get it figured out? I think it's a little too soon to say, but a win's a win. They're now 11-2-1.
Yep.
They're not going to go 16-2 this year, folks. So at least for that, but I mean, they're back to their winning ways for now. So
still a lot of things to improve, and obviously we'll talk about that more on the podcast on Wednesday. So for the last time here at TD Place Stadium, we're just over 23,000 showed up to see the RedBlacks lose for the first time at home to the Montreal Alouettes by the score of 24-12. With the win, the Alouettes do clinch a home playoff game, which we'll find out where it's going to be. So, for everybody here at TD Place, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We'll talk to you soon.